Brief update. This is the second engine. This one was in that car up until recently. If you remember, I bought two of these. The other engine needs a new cam, but it has the balance shaft deleted already. This one has a great cam. It's got a brand new timing belt, but it has the balance shaft module. I wanted to compare them to decide which one to put in the Jeep first. My plan is to put one of these two engines into the Jeep and then put about 50,000 miles on it or so while I'm rebuilding the other engine to like a brand new state, and then swap the engines. I was going to put the other engine, which is sitting back here, the other engine sitting back here, I was going to put it in, but now I'm deciding that I'm going to go ahead and delete the balance shaft and then put this one in. It's got a better, the cam doesn't need to be replaced. The timing belt's new. It seems like it'd be logical to just remove the balance shaft and go with this one. So I'll need a new ALH pickup, a new composite pan, a balance shaft kit, and then this one can be done. So that's what I spent the weekend doing. Additionally, my intake is done. I have a separate video for the intake, but I took the stock BHW intake, cut it in half, flipped it around, welded it back up, and filled in the EGR hole. So there's a separate video for that part of the process. So between those two, taking that engine out and redoing this, that gave me basically my whole weekend full. I'm gonna have to remove that crankcase ventilation tube, move it, turn it the other direction. I think it's just glued in there, but it does interfere just slightly, but there's in the right position, ready to go. I have the parts here that I'm gonna use: new oil pan, pickup, new oil pump, chain tensioner, seals, and bolts that I'm going to be using to take the balance shaft out of this engine. So this is the second of the two BHWs. There was a balance shaft assembly that was connected to this in the oil pan that is going away. Going to be replaced with just the regular ALH style pump. This is the balance shaft assembly. You can see how strange this is to put this inside of a an oil pan, but this is the balance shaft assembly. It was driven off of a chain from the crank, and there was an oil pump here, but this goes away completely to make this engine more reliable. So I have a few things more to do today. I'm going to take the rest of the stuff I need out of this car and get rid of it. I still need to take the throttle pedal off of it, and a couple electrical things, and then if I get this balance shaft delete kit installed, get this mated to the transmission, and get it into the Jeep. That's my goals. I don't know if I'll be able to finish it because when I ordered the kit, they did not send me the little gear that goes on the crank. So I've contacted them to get them to send it to me, and they are, but the piece is actually like this, it's missing. By the way, there was several pieces of the old balance shaft chain tensioner in the oil pan. You can see one stuck in the pickup screen. So this engine would not have lasted very long with that existing balance shaft assembly. That's a very common failure point in these engines, and I'm glad that I got to this one before it blew up, because these are great engines and a lot of them have been destroyed because of that. Another update on my project: I redid all of these wires for the reverse sensor and the four-wheel drive sensor. Added some extra shrink tubing just to protect it a bit more, and I have the breather tube here ready to go. I have reattached the transmission to the transfer case, and ready to go ahead and couple it up. I'm gonna finish grinding off all of these here. This is what's left of the old engine mounts. So I'm going to remove those and get ready so that when I've dropped the engine in, I can go ahead and weld up the new mounts without having anything to remove. And so I'm getting ready to do that. I have the old balance shaft removed, but I'm still waiting on a gear. There's a crankshaft gear here that wasn't on my order when I ordered it, but they're sending me one, so just waiting for that and tinkering around with some other stuff while I'm doing that. I got the old engine mounts off, ground down. It's a lot more grinding than you would think. All right, so this crankshaft bolt was incredibly difficult to get off. That impact was too weak. Even that impact taken off of a regulator, turned all the way up, was way too weak. I finally did it by using this breaker bar with a big piece of pipe. And this is my counter hold. I just cut the flex plate in half and, used this to counter hold it. But it took about all of my strength to get that off of there. That is one tight bolt. All right, some more progress. I've got the faceplate off. Using a gear puller to try to pull this gear off of the crankshaft just resulted in the gear breaking. It's pretty brittle, so what I'm going to try to do is just grind this here. I've put this protection on here just so that none of the shavings from the grindings end up in the engine. But I'm going to grind this down and then put a chisel on it and see if I can get it to pop. Should be able to break it, and then I'll get it off. The new gear here should be a friction fit, just like the other one, so I'll have to heat this gear up to get it to slide on there. But yeah, I'm going to try and just very carefully grind a notch in this and then put an air chisel on it and see if I can get it to break. Well, I got the old gear off. I got the new gear on. The pump with the smaller sprocket, I think it's the BRM sprocket, which gives me a little higher oil pressure. The new pump and the tensioner, making some progress. I'm getting there. All right. All retimed to put back together. I rotated the engine a bunch of times and then came back to top dead center and checked timing, and we're still back on timing, so I'm confident on the timing. Still have to tap the oil feed hole and plug it. That was the oil feed for the balance shaft assembly. It's got to be blocked, but I'm getting there. The reason I didn't change the timing belt here is because it was very new, and I'm probably only going to put 20 or 25,000 miles on it or so before putting another belt on it. I could have just changed it, but well, it's an almost new belt, so no point in changing it. The belt, I bought the car 2 years ago. The belt had just been changed, so the belt's 4 years old now, but only has maybe 7,000-8,000 miles on it or so. So I'll get 20,000 or so on it and then change it. Next, I've got to tap this oil feed hole here and put a plug in it. So I've got to tap, I got to drill it out just a little bit, and I'm going to tap that and put a brass plug in it. Alright, got this little plug in the oil galley there. And then I got to install this windage tray, and then I'll go ahead and put the oil pan on. Alright, I've got the oil pan installed. It went well, except for one little problem. If you can see that, but the casting here, that made me have to grind off the head of that bolt, because the casting is not quite right. But other than that, everything went fine. Next, I'm going to go ahead and put on the oil filter remote housing plate. This is the block-off plate for the old oil filter housing. And then I'm going to have some hoses that'll go to a remote filter and thermostat. What I have to go in this place is the Whitbread oil filter relocation block-off plate. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on now, and then I'll just tape off these ports until it's time to actually use it, and I'll put the check valve in it. So I have the adapter on and block off for the auxiliary. There's a pressure port, and I have the return and supply, and then temporarily just have the turbo hose blocked off because it's just a piece of tape, because I'm not sure if I'm going to use an AN style hose or I'm going to use the banjo style. And this is the filter housing that's going to be on the other side of that, and then there's an out port for a oil cooler, and there's a thermostat inside here. Another thing I moved over, it's kind of hard to see in the back here, but this is the pressure port for the bypass, so that if the filter is clogged, it'll just bypass. I did notice that the other housing has an actual check valve that I thought was going to be retained when I originally got this. So you see this little check valve here. So I may have to put a check valve of some sort just to make sure that the oil doesn't drain back. I'm planning on putting some sort of a pre-lube system in here, so that may eliminate the need for the check valve, but I don't know. Figure that part out later. Alright, so because the breather was facing the wrong direction, I just popped it off. I'm going to be able to rotate it and put it back on. But for now, I'm just going to tape it off. I saved the other piece. I got to clean the oil around here so that I can re-glue it back on. But I just stuck a 1/2 inch extension into it and popped it right off. Got the valve cover reinstalled. Got everything all put back together, ready to go. So now I'm ready to go ahead and mount the engine to the transmission and transfer case, which is all ready to go. And then I can finally put it in. I've been wanting to do that for a year now. So, yep, time to start bolting up the adapter plate, get them mated together and in the Jeep.